I'll leave one for Sharon.
What? Oh, because they don't stay?
Did someone call the roll?
I just left a stand out. So.
I hope the sound improves.
Can you hear me, Sharon?
Yes, I can hear.
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Thank you.
Ready, Sheila?
Mhm.
But this would just may not be a problem, but at large, you got the whole Republican crowd. coming.
Who opens the meeting? Does
So,
that?
the people in office to battle, large stuff. Here stuff could be. District wide, things may not necessarily. Six districts, six.
Oh, yeah.
She's press. Yeah, she's president.
Okay, are you guys ready? Everybody ready? Okay, it is 3:47 and I'd like to call the Board of Finance meeting to order. Clerk Bianca, I believe you have some comments you would like to make.
Good afternoon, members of the public. For audio quality, we will be muting everyone not speaking by default to maintain good audio quality for council members and yourselves. If you would like to speak during the meeting, during the public portion, please submit your request in the chat. Directions to do so will be listed in the chat. We ask that you provide your full name, address, as those are required for all speakers at in-person council meetings. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Would you mind calling the roll for the council members that are present and those that are online?
Yeah.
Yes,
Everybody.
it's everybody is part of this meeting.
Yes. Councilmember Gooden Rogers,
Present.
Councilmember McBride,
Present.
Councilmember Warner, Councilmember Bolden Simpson,
Present.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Present.
Councilmember White,
Present.
Councilmember Dr. Davis,
Present.
Vice President Thomas Morgan,
Present?
Councilmember Lee.
Present.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you kindly. And we will hear first up from our city controller. If you would like to come up and give your name and address for the record. And I believe, yeah, oh, we do have to do, I'm sorry, Kyle, we do have to do the election of officers. So who opens up the roll call? Is that me that opens up the roll call for the elections of officers? My apologies for that. I guess I should have looked at the agenda. So first, we're going to have the election of officers, the review of the 2024 investment report, and the review of the investment policy. So to begin with, we must elect 2 members to serve on the board's officers as a president and a secretary. So at this time, I'm going to open the roll or open the nominations for president of the board.
I'll make a motion that for Sheila Niskowski.
I second.
Thank you. Is there any other nominations for president? Asking a third time, is there any other nominations for president? Seeing none, we're going to close the nominations process. And I believe that there still has to be a vote, Mr. Plum?
Correct.
Could you have a roll call vote, please? Clerk Bianca Toretto.
Point of
Councilmember Bo-
question.
There is a
Yes.
motion on the floor and being voted, but what is your question?
During our previous meeting there, I would like Mr. Parliamentarian Palmer to go over which votes what types of votes are acceptable. We did like have a little issue with that, so I want to make sure we're clear.
Okay, Mr. Palmer, would you mind answering her question before we proceed with the vote?
Since there's only one nomination on the floor, your vote should be yes or no. You cannot abstain because an abstention is valid only if you have a conflict of interest that has been disclosed previously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. So would we proceed with the vote, please?
Councilmember Bolden Simpson,
Nay.
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner, Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember White, Councilmember Gooden Rogers,
Aye.
Vice President Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Council President Lee.
Aye.
I have 8 ayes and 1 nay.
Okay, thank you so much, and I do accept to take the president for the Board of Finance. Thank you. So we are going to move on now to the secretary. Are there any nominations for secretary?
Point of information,
Yes.
when do you all meet?
I believe there were dates in the packet that they sent us. If you reviewed the packet, the finance,
Right here. It's right here.
I
on the first
believe
page.
there's, oh, yeah.
Okay.
So there's 4 quarters, the,
Okay, I got you.
okay. Okay, I will proceed with the elections. Is there any nominations for secretary?
Question. Who's
Yes.
the secretary now?
Councilmember Troy Warner.
I make a motion for Councilmember Troy Warner.
Second.
Okay, is there any other nominations for secretary? Is there any other nominations for secretary? Seeing none, we're going to close the elections. For secretary, Clerk Bianca Torado, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson,
Hold on, could you go to someone else first? I'm having an issue.
Councilmember Warner, Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis, Councilmember White, Councilmember Gooden Rogers,
Aye.
Vice President Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
President Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson,
Thank you for your patience.
And would you cast your vote, please?
Did you hear? I'm sorry.
No.
Was I
No.
muted?
Yeah.
Aye.
I have 9 ayes.
Thank you so much. We have now closed the elections for secretary. Okay, so now we are going to go to the review of the 2024 investment report.
Hi, Willis, City Controller, offices on the 12th floor. Before you today is the annual review of the city's investment portfolio. Here today with me is our Director of Treasury, Jonathan McGowan, colleagues from First Source Bank, who manages the city, our portfolio, Paul Gifford, Eric Clapsetto, and Delia Salazar Nichols. So this is, in routine with what we've done previously. The city's investment portfolio with First Source is about $200 million, total $1 million. It fluctuates a little bit here and there over the year. But the basis of it is about $200 million that they use to invest on our behalf. As you can see, the dates, the actual dates, I think the upcoming dates are April 16th, July 16th. I think when I put these dates in here, it was before I actually got them confirmed from First Source. They're a little off, but just by a day or so. But what we have here, what you have there is what I had proposed, well, not what I had proposed, what I anticipated being the date. So we're just like a day out. But as those dates come about, I will extend that offer, that invite for you all to join if need be, if you'd like to get those quarterly reports on the investment portfolio. Oh, and those will not, I mean, and they'll be held on virtual, so they'll be on a Teams link. So we'll get that out to you guys if you're interested. And with that, I will like to bring up Paul Gifford, the rep at First Source, to walk us through the investment report.
Okay, thank you kindly. If you could please state your name and address for the record.
Paul Gifford, Chief Investment Officer at First Source Bank, 100 North Michigan. You will see in the investment presentation, I'm going to essentially the third page in, it's talking about interest rates and inflation, which are two things that clearly impact the portfolio. Today, on the upper left-hand quadrant, you'll see that interest rates are in the gray bar. And basically, you are able to buy from anywhere from 30 days out to 5 years in maturity. And those rates tend to be right now between 4.25% and 4.5%. So when I'm thinking about what the portfolio will earn for you over the next year, that's basically the framework that we're looking at today. The nice thing is in the bottom right-hand corner, really for the first time in about 15 years, you're actually earning a rate of return above inflation. That was a period of time when the Federal Reserve made interest rates zero, basically, and obviously inflation was higher than that. So right now it's a really good time for the portfolio relative to inflation. Next page really shows where the portfolio today is. As Kyle said, you have had on with us pretty much $200 million for the better part of 6 or 7 years. And when we are investing that, obviously we go by the policy, investment policy that you have at the city, which is obviously guided by the state investment policy. And so basically we have this broken out into two categories. One would be considered cash. And what we mean by cash is it's invested in certificates of deposit that meet the criteria of the state, or they're in a government money market, which is also permitted by state investments. So right now, about 61% of the portfolio is in that. The rest of the portfolio, the other 39% or so, is invested in government bonds, for example, United States Treasuries or government agency bonds. And the reason right now that we're basically over the $200 million is some of the investments we made in the last year before the Federal Reserve started lowering interest rates have actually modestly appreciated in price. A couple of years ago, we were here when the Fed had raised rates and the portfolio was actually worth less than 200, and now it's slightly over $200 million. Now, with where interest rates are today, we will basically be letting the bonds mature and reinvesting at very similar rates. There's not a lot of trading activity I can do right now. It doesn't matter if I earn 4.25% for 6 months or 4.25% for 1 year for you right now. So we're pretty much keeping the portfolio with the maturities being reinvested in government bonds. As the market goes, there's times when banks are requiring more deposits, and so they pay up on their CD rates at a higher rate than what I can earn on Treasury investments. So at that time, we'll buy more CDs for you. So we're obviously watching the market every day to find out what the best investment opportunity is within the set of investments permitted by the city and state. The next chart here just shows the portfolio value over the last several years. As I talked about, interest rates had risen a couple of years ago. So you see the portfolio has gone anywhere from $199 million all the way up to the $202 million that we're at today. In the last year, the account basically earned just under $6.9 million, and that was paid back to the city. Every month, whatever interest comes in, we automatically return to the city's checking account instead of leaving it in an investment account. So it's always going to be right around $200 million. And then I talked about how we're over the $200 million. You can see that line called market appreciation. The portfolio actually appreciated $3 million, which will slowly go away over time unless we're able to take advantage of some of the current markets. The next several pages in the presentations are literally all of the holdings that we have. As you can see, there's pages of CDs. If the CD is not an approved depository institution in the state of Indiana, we limit your purchases to $250,000. If it is an approved depository institution, as a municipality, you can go over the $250,000. So you'll see some CDs that go anywhere from $2 million to $5 million, but those are always approved depository institutions, and you have the Public Deposit Insurance Fund backing that. Last page, over the last year, this is really just telling you how the account did over the last year. It did basically 5.15%, which is a much more attractive rate than we've had over the last couple years. And working with Kyle and his predecessors over the years, we created a benchmark of U.S. Treasury securities that mature in 1 to 3 years, which is basically the core of what we end up doing for you. And that return was just over 4%. So we added about 1% value of over and above what the benchmark was. So that's about an extra $2 million to the city. With that, I would be glad to entertain any questions.
Okay, thank you so much. I guess we'll start with Councilmember Karen White.
Thank you for your presentation. You may not can answer this question, but based on where we're at as a country, do you foresee any changes occurring that will impact our investment?
So the largest impact to your portfolio will be related to interest rates and the policy that the Federal Reserve sets. So if the Federal Reserve lowers or raises interest rates, your account, because of the short-term nature of maturities being 2 years and less, is impacted the quickest. So for example, the Federal Reserve lowering 1% basically this fall, your money market assets went from earning 5.25% to 4.25%. It's within 7 days you see that impact. So if the Federal Reserve were to lower interest rates later this year, as they see inflation come down, then the money market in particular would start to come down. So that rate we see today could come down a little bit. Does that answer the question?
Thank
Okay,
you.
absolutely.
Is there any other questions from council members? Anyone on the virtual? Do you see anybody, Clerk Toronto?
I do not see any council members online wishing that have any questions, nor do I see anyone from the public in person or online that have any questions.
Thank you. For clarifications, Mr. Palmer, is there a public hearing on this as well? Do we open? No, that's okay. That's why I just wanted to double check. Okay, well, it looks like there's no questions. I thank you so much for your time and your
Thank you.
presentation. Thank you. Okay. And now it looks like we're going to have review of the investment policy.
If you know, you could take some time to look at that and just, if you have any questions.
Mhm, okay.
But yeah, it was just, a lot of it we just spoke on.
And so for, just for clarification, the 200 million, that is the limit that is set by the state statute or the banking industry, the feds on the, is there a limit to what can be invested by a bank for security or for, no?
You mean the amount?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
okay, okay. You kept bringing that up, so I thought
I
maybe
think
there
that's
was a
what
limitation.
was allocated to the portfolio, 6, 7 years ago when they started.
Okay. Okay, any questions from anyone? If not, we're going to adjourn the meeting. We do have another personal and finance meeting that runs straight into this one. So any questions, last offer? No? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much, Mr. Kyle Willis, and everyone that came. This meeting is adjourned. Okay, so now we have the call to order the personal and finance meeting. This will be the organizational meeting. And I do have some documents to hand out for that. Clerk Toronto, do you want to call the roll for the,
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Present.
Committee Member Dr. Davis, Committee Vice Chair White,
Present.
Committee Chair Niskoski.
present?
We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. And I do have some handouts for this meeting. I guess I should have done it earlier. Would you mind distributing these for me? Thank you. One of them is oh, I better take a copy. Thank you. One of them is the 2024 Annual Report for Personnel and Finance that was filed on December the 20th. And the other one is just the agenda for today. So I'd like to welcome everybody. We do have a quorum. If you could all review the committee duties and responsibilities, which are basically to oversee the activities performed by the Department of Administration and Finance and review all the proposed salaries, budgets, appropriations, and other fiscal matters, as well as personnel policy, health benefits, and related matters, I'm sorry. So I've given those to you for your review. I would also like to then move to number 4 as far as the budget process. As you all know, this year, the budget process. Oh, do you have? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The budget process usually happens in August, September. We vote in that first meeting in October. We're going to be moving. And this is going to fall right in the middle of the budget season. So normally we schedule some offsite meetings for outreach into the public, and I can foresee some difficulties with that process. So what I would like to propose is that we just set all the meetings for here in the chamber, because there could be a delay, that if there is a delay in moving, then we can always amend the agenda and do some offsite. But with technology needed, the clerk's office is going to be, we're all going to be at some point packing up and moving. So I just want to try and make the process as easy as it possibly can. So any thoughts on that suggestion? Councilmember White?
I think it makes sense with the uncertainty in regards to when the moving date will be, and also that we have a schedule for the hearings for the budget, and citizens can still join us virtually as well. So we still have that option.
Okay, any other?
I'm good with that.
Okay. Okay, so we'll begin working on those dates. What do you think there?
Just a comment, we are working on a timeline for the move because really the move is like right in the middle of budget season. So we either move before budget season or afterwards. But again, a timeline will be sent to you all, working with administration and leadership to determine the best outcome for that. And we are working with scheduling and just opening and seeing what's available in the chamber so that we can get on the calendar early, so we can have everything pretty much squared away.
And so I did talk with our city controller about that as well, to try and make it as smooth as a process as possible. And maybe even trying to join, maybe shorten that calendar if we can get some of the other meetings together so that we're not stringing it out over, I think we had 10 meetings, 11 meetings last year. So maybe try and get that, maybe more departments in the chamber so we can hear them, because we're going to have a lot to focus on there. I also want everybody to keep in mind about police and fire negotiations are also going to be this year on top of the budget season. So it's going to be a very busy time for everyone. So is there any questions or comments anybody from the committee or other council members may have at this point?
So
Kyle, do you have any comments? No? Okay. All right, then that is going to adjourn. Then I'm going to make a motion to So, oh yes, we're going to move on from the organizational meeting. I don't have to close that, right? Okay, sorry. And we'll move on to bill number 4-25.
Yes, Kyle Willis, City Controller, offices on the 12th floor, Bill -4-25, authorizes or establishes the investment policy for the next 4 years. This is pretty much the same ordinance that's that we pass. I think it's been, I don't know if it's been every 2 years prior or.
It's 4, isn't it? I believe it's 4,
Well, it's been always 4.
but we'll see what Jenny has to say.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jenna Throw, City Attorney, offices on the 12th floor of this building. As Kyle was starting to say, typically the council has, I'll just kind of speak to the structural differences of this ordinance, and then I'll leave it to Kyle to speak to some of the financial aspects. Typically, the city has asked that the council pass this ordinance on an annual basis. But in reviewing the statute more closely for in anticipation of this ordinance, we noticed that the statute actually authorizes the council to adopt an investment policy by ordinance for a period of up to 4 years. And for some of the categories of investments that have to be done annually, only need to be done by resolution. And so what we've done in the bill that's before you, the categories of investments that Kyle can speak to are the same as what we have asked for in the other annual investment policies. Just the structure is a bit different. The types of investment authorization that we have to ask for by ordinance, we've asked for that authorization for a period of 4 years. And the categories of investments where we have to come to council more frequently, we anticipate coming to you with resolutions for those, because the state law allows those authorizations to be adopted by resolution. And because that can be done in one meeting, that can be done a little bit more efficiently in future years. And if there's a need to change the investment policy, we could always come to you with an ordinance in a future year. And so if there's any questions as to structure, I can help address those, and I can leave it to Kyle to address the financial aspects of the ordinance.
Okay, thank you so much for that clarification. Do you have anything to add?
Like it's like, what we just heard previously in the Board of Finance meeting. The types of investments that, our funds are invested in are like CDs, certificates of deposits, treasury notes, treasury bills, things that Paul Gifford was mentioning earlier during his presentation. The certificates of deposit are the ones that we have to come back annually for that approval. That obviously we'll do by resolution. I think everything else falls within the 4-year, the category that we're establishing here.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. I appreciate the information. I'm going to come back to the committee members. Is there any questions from anyone on the committee?
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. Davis?
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Mhm.
I would just like to know what prompted the review that has led us to this proposed change today? Because of the fact that, you just shared that we've been doing this the same way for a long while. So what prompted that review?
I'm just taking a look at the statutes, and typically the practice had been adopting new ordinances every year and taking a look at what is required to be adopted by ordinance as opposed to what is permitted to be adopted by resolution. Either way, the council is vested with the authority to grant the investment policy, but we thought that it might be more efficient for the council to set a longer window, because that is authorized by state law, and then come to you with resolutions for the things that have a shorter window, but are authorized to be adopted by resolution. And it's all within the windows that are set by state law.
So you're now looking for 4 years?
For the same, that is correct, that for the categories that are set by ordinance, it's the same types of investments that we have come every year with, that we're asking for those categories to be set for 4 years. And if there was a need to change it, we could always come to you at the same time that we come with the resolution with the change that's presented by ordinance.
And then with our parliamentary, we can come back later on and say, and then adopt that and make it 2 years if you wanted to do that instead of 4.
Yes.
All right. Let's go for it. I'm at peace. Go ahead.
Okay, is there any other questions? Okay, seeing none, then we'll open it up to the public hearing process. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor of Bill 4-25?
I do not see anyone in person or online wishing to speak on the bill.
So is there anyone wishing to speak against the bill?
I do not see anyone wishing to speak in opposition.
And I see no one in the chamber that wishes to speak for or against the
Nope.
bill.
No one in person or online.
Thank you. So at this point, we're going to close the public hearing on Bill 4-25, and I'll bring it back to the committee.
I move that we send Bill 04-25 to the Committee of the Whole with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
And there's been a motion to send Bill 4-25 to the Committee of the Whole with a favorable recommendation and duly seconded. Clerk Toronto, could you call the roll, please?
Committee Member Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
Committee Member Dr. Davis.
Aye.
Committee Vice Chair White.
Aye.
Committee Chair Niskoski.
Aye.
4 ayes.
Thank you. Bill 4-25 will be sent to the Committee of the Whole with a favorable recommendation at the 7 o'clock meeting. Seeing no other business to come before this committee, if anybody has any questions or comments, now would be the time. Otherwise, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Second.
This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, everyone. The next meeting starts at 4:20, and that'll be Public Works and Property Vacation.
That's no problem.
Okay, ready? Okay, it is now 4:20, and I would like to call the Public Works and Property Vacation Committee to order. Clerk Toronto, could you call the roll for the committee?
Councilmember Warner.
He is here, but I'm sure.
Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Present.
Committee Vice Chair Gooden Rogers.
Present.
Committee Chair Niskoski.
Present.
3 present.
Thank you kindly. We do have a quorum. So this will be the first part of this committee is going to be the organizational meeting. I have handed out the agenda to council members committee members and the annual report that was filed on December 20th, 2024. Does anybody like me to review the committee duties and responsibilities? Yeah, I did. Thank you. But the committee duties are overseeing the various activities performed by the building department, the Department of Public Works, and related public works and property vacation issues. And I also want to mention during this process that the citizen member application stays open until February 14th. At that time, that application process will be closed. Any comments from the committee members in reference to the organizational meeting? I did talk with, had a brief conversation with Eric Horvath today, and they are going to be reviewing the plan that they have for sewer, water, and stormwater usage. So that'll be coming to us probably in July. He'll be making a presentation, I believe, to the full council. Any questions or comments? Okay, if not, then I would like to go ahead and move on to the update for the alley vacation process ordinance, or about the process for the updated ordinance. So last year, for a little background, we did update the ordinance for basically vacating right-of-ways, alleys, that type of thing. And after initiating that through a year, we found that there was a couple other items that needed to be tweaked to make it even better ordinance. And I see Chris Dressler is in front of us, and he will explain what we would like to present. And I thank them very much for listening to the concerns and working together to get through this process to make it a good process for everyone.
Yes, good afternoon, council members.
Excuse me if I may. I just note for the record that I am present. I walked in right at the end
Yes.
of attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Toronto. Could you note that Councilmember Warner is present? Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chris Dressel, Offices Community Investment with office on the 12th floor of this building. As noted by Councilmember Noskoski, we've been fortunate to have a good conversation since the time that that the council passed the updates for last year. That was in May of last year, so about 8 months ago. And the ordinance changes went into effect on August 1st of 2024. So it's it's about 8 months, it's less than a year. So we don't have a good, in the sense of moving some of the actual requests through, we don't have a big sample size yet. In fact, so some of these changes are well-timed to be able to address some of these new applicants that from here into the future. So looking at the update. Have this hiccup when I start. There we go. So we'll just take a real quick look at the 2024 ordinance again, based on what was passed last year, and then look at our 2025 proposed updates with some draft language. We've got those categorized into 4 different categories of fee payment, envelope preparation, adjacent property owner notification, and then other. So real quick overview from last time. Some of the key things that we addressed is adding on an early engagement process, sort of a preliminary review through staff prior to any official submittal with the Board of Public Works. And then we've added some appropriate evaluation criteria that was set by the Board of Public Works. We now have a $300 filing fee for staff processing in preparation for the Board of Public Works meetings, and a 90-day expiration date for those petition requests following Board of Public Works review and decision and recommendation, I mean. So there's now a limitation between that decision and the time they're filed with the council. And then on the clerk filing, making sure that we've got a fuller notification of the block. We've increased our signature requirements. We'll talk a little bit about that today. And then ensuring that staff attends the meetings. So there's a guide or some assistance for petitioners and the council. So address these sort of in order of, I think, simplest to maybe the most requiring some conversation, perhaps. I think we generated this series of updates with the Scrivener's error. And that's noted here. We had the wrong subsection of the article mentioned. The next one is just talking about fee payment. Obviously, we're adding another payment here. Initially, we had it. As it stands now, it's sort of noted that all the payments would be made at the same time, at the time that's filed to engineering. And so this is a proposal to say, let's split the payments up so that the payment that's due to engineering will be provided to engineering at the time that submittal takes place, and then the filing that goes to the clerk will take place at the time it goes to the clerk. And then also on fee payment, just make an alteration there and how any overage that might be present, that is paid to the clerk's office and not the Ordinance Violations Bureau clerk. And that's meant as an opportunity for a more efficient reimbursement process. The envelope preparation, this is one that actually predated. It was not changed during our the last change in the ordinance last year. Is basically currently the ordinance states that there's 2 sets of envelopes prepared, and the reasoning for that was if there were a future hearing that required an additional mailing, that those envelopes would be prepared. So the proposed new language would say is to say prepare for the single mailing, and in the event that a second mailing is needed, that responsibility would be from the petitioner to do that. And then the last one here is just talking about adjacent property owner notification. The pre-2024 ordinance only required a single signature from an adjacent property owner. The alteration made with the 2024 ordinance went from a single to all adjacent property owners. And just again, note the fact that we've not had a real case of someone at this stage of the new process as of yet. But so this is considered sort of a proactive conversation. And so there's, I guess, a couple of components to this to think about. One is altering that from essentially all or 100% of adjacent property owners, that signature requirement, to a simple majority of 51%. And this is, I think, we're sort of in conversation here, but part of the thought is if there's, I think for sure, we don't want to add any complication or have one of these requests disqualified because of a technicality. But we're also trying to balance that with the fact that, a completed vacation of an alley or street, whatever it might be, it's a permanent change. That's what's our theme throughout last year. It's like, you really can't unvacate the alley, or the whatever the right of way might be. So we want to be conscious of that too, that, these are property owners that need to be engaged at some important level. So they're aware that, there's a potential change coming to your property in the future. So one possible fallback position is that if there's a case where the petitioner can't meet that requirement of seeing a majority signatures from the adjacent property owners that we would need some evidence of why that's not occurring. What's the reason? And how have you tried to make that contact? Can you document that for us? To show why that contact has not occurred. So that's sort of a two-piece thing, potentially making that alteration from 100% to a simple majority. And then for those cases where the contacts can't be made, why is that the case? What's the documentation? What's the evidence to that effect? So that's the updates for today. Thank you for the opportunity. Again, thank you for the I'll echo Councilperson Nagowski's comments and saying thank you for being part of these conversations to make for a better ordinance as we move ahead. And I've got representation here from engineering and legal, of course, the clerk's office. We've all been part of that conversation. So.
And thank you so much for the presentation and explaining everyone the proposed changes. And this is just as an update today so that everybody was on board and transparency with the changes that we would like to see or that I believe would make it a better ordinance and with agreements with the administration. But at the end of the day, it takes the committee to make sure that everybody fully understands. And as you know, nothing moves together with just one person. It moves together as a vote. So with that being said, is there anyone that has any questions on what was presented today? Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Not really a question, comment. I really like the fact that you have looked into being proactive to have all the members who are adjacent to the property sign on instead of just one member. I think that, not that it's been a major storm in the past, but it really helps to include the voices of everybody who's connected. And so we don't have anybody come up at the last minute that they were included. They didn't know they were out of town or whatever issue. And that I think it really has a buy-in to the community, which I've always appreciated. So I thought that was a really key point that you brought out. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ophelia Gooden-Rogers.
So I would like to know that when the proper time comes, that will be updated on the website? Or what are we going to be doing so that people be aware of the new changes?
There would be updates made in terms of the forms required and then the procedure. Yep.
And they've worked very hard on the procedures to ensure that the information flow is reaching the residents in a way that is understandable. There was a lot of work that was done on that level too, just to ensure you of that. So this is kind of going to bring this whole process together. Any other comments or questions? Councilmember or Vice President Rachel Tomas Morgan.
Thank you so much for this update. I just wanted some clarification on what forms of evidence is acceptable. And how do you seek to retrieve that?
We haven't deliberated that yet. It could, I don't want to speculate, but I think it's probably something in writing and that sort of offers sufficient proof that there's been an attempt to contact these adjacent property owners, which again, part of this issue is they may not be local.
So a statement from the petitioner signed that they have attempted to do so and explain how.
I think the burden remains on the petitioner to provide that proof. Yeah.
Yeah, and same to seek the signatures, that the burden is on the petitioner, not the city. Thank you.
Yes, that is correct because they're petitioning the city to vacate basically an alleyway that they would own. So with that being said, it's not for the administration to be doing the work to help guide them on the process, what they have to do and the steps entailed. But it's just as a petitioner is expected to be here on those dates. So it is on the petitioner fully to have that action taken. Any other questions? President Lee?
Yes. Thank you for the presentation. It is always good when we are being proactive to make decisions that are going to make us operate more efficiently. How soon do you see these changes being made, and how soon will it be enacted?
Well, our current schedule, maybe perhaps, I mean, just the draft schedule would be coming back with a first reading at the next council session. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and if I may, we have been working on this together as questions come up during some of the meetings. But to have this done early in the year, so that taking off, we have a good, clean ordinance. We thought that was very important, and to make sure that everybody is aware of what the changes are. So between now and then, if there is any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or Mr. Dressler. Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you for your time and for the presentation. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And at this time, we're not going to have public comments since this is just an update, but we will have public comments when we do the update to the ordinance. So we're going to move on to bill number 20-05. This is a resolution appointing the Board of Public Works and its delegates as the Common Council's agents for overseeing the guaranteed energy savings contract for improvements for the South Bend Fire Department.
Hi, Michael Schmidt, Assistant City Attorney with offices on the 12th floor of this building. Thank you for the opportunity here to bring this forward. This is pretty short and sweet. State law requires council approval to engage in an energy savings contract when it involves an entity that is not one of our city's utilities. So here we have a situation where we're trying to employ some energy savings, which is a unique statutory process for procurement and bidding. Because we're going to try to put solar panels up and some other energy savings possibilities at the MLK Center, the new MLK Center, and the Central Fire Station. So what we're essentially asking here is for council to delegate the responsibility to the Board of Public Works and the city engineering team, as well as representatives from the fire department and VPA, to go out, solicit proposals from companies that provide energy savings, consultation services. Public Works will go advertise this through its traditional means. They'll come back, they'll score the responses to the proposals. They'll come back with the most favorable or the highest scoring company after they meet with everyone. Then Board of Public Works will make an approval to negotiate a final contract. Then legal department will step back and negotiate a final contract and bring that contract to council for its hopeful ratification, execution of said contracts so the city can move forward. The city does these projects fairly, 1 or 2 a year, but they're always related to our utilities, water, wastewater, which again, under the statute doesn't require council's approval, but because this is fire department and the new MLK Center, it does. So we obviously want to follow the law. We want to work with council, but we want to we're requesting that affirmation through the resolution to delegate those responsibilities to the Board of Public Works to do sort of all the legwork to bring it to the goal line and then bring you guys a final contract that you guys will be presented and then have an opportunity to hopefully approve.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you so much for the explanation. I will bring it back to the committee. Are there any questions in reference to the Bill 2505 and the explanation you just heard? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the public hearing portion. Is there anyone here from the public wishing to speak in favor of Bill 2505?
I do not see anyone in person in the chambers or online wishing to speak in favor of the bill.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak against?
I do not see anyone in person or online wishing to speak in opposition.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing portion of this meeting. I would like to acknowledge Jason Piontek that was here with us today. He normally had served as a citizen member last year on the Public Works and Property Vacation Committee, so it's nice to see you here. I'm sorry if you didn't get the message that you weren't supposed to attend the meeting. My apologies if it didn't. But coming back to the committee, any questions or from any council members present? If not, I'll entertain a motion regarding the bill.
Second the motion.
Councilmember Warner,
I was going to say, you're not on the committee. No. So the committee members are myself, Ms. Rogers, Dr. Davis, and Councilmember Warner. So is there a second from one of the?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, there has been a motion. It's been duly seconded. Clerk Toronto, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Warner, Councilmember Dr. Davis,
Aye.
Committee Vice Chair Gooden Rogers,
Aye.
Committee Chair Niskoski.
Aye.
4 ayes.
Thank you. Bill 2505 will be sent to the Committee of the Whole with a favorable recommendation.
All right,
Thank you so much.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
Would go to full council.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll go to the full council with a favorable recommendation. Okay, if there's nothing else to come before this committee, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this committee. The next one is community investment that starts at 4:50 PM.
It's just piece. So if you send in, especially the interviews with the students, send it to my Gmail. Because I had them come. Just, yeah. And then I talked
Good afternoon. We'll start the 4:15 meeting of Community Investment Committee meeting. I will take the roll call. We have changed council members on me a little bit, so I gotta, Councilmember White,
Present.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers,
Present.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson,
Present.
and Chair Warner is present. With all are present and accounted for. We will start with bill number 1. Oh, yeah, we're going to do the organizational meeting. Sorry, thanks. I get ahead of myself. I get too excited. So I didn't print out copies of the report. They were emailed out and online. The Community Investment Committee oversees the various activities of the Department of Community Investment, primarily reviewing all real, personal, and residential tax abatements, and working with the business development team. We did a training, I know, last January. If there's any interest, we can kind of do that again. The committee members let me know. I've also scheduled a update from Community Investment for our next council meeting on February 10th to come and give an update on a number of projects in the community that they're working on. Actually, most of them have already been before us, I think, but just an update on status and where those are. If there's any of those in particular, let me know. And we'll get those added to the February 10th list. Last year, Community Investment held a total of 19 meetings on different tax abatement bills and included 4 updates last year. Any questions from committee members or requests? Okay, thank you. And with that, we will go on to the first bill. Mr. Morrell, I think, is got Bill 2504, resolution adopting a written fiscal plan and establishing a policy for the provision of services to Lafayette Falls Extension Annexation Area. Good afternoon. Welcome, Mr. Morrell.
Thanks. Share my screen here. There we go. Skip Morrell, Principal Development Planner with offices on the 14th floor of this building. It should look familiar. We saw this at the last council meeting. This is specifically looking at adopting the fiscal plan for this annexation area, so covering how the city will offer services to this annexation area once it's incorporated into the city. So just as a refresher, an annexation has been requested by the property owner, Lafayette Falls LLC, for roughly 45 acres south of Lafayette Falls Phase 1 annexation area and west of US 31 highway. The area meets the state law contiguity requirement. The area is currently vacant. The proposed development is somewhere between 100 and 110 lots for houses, primarily in the form of single unit dwellings. No capital improvements are planned by the city now as part of this annexation area. Water is available from streets to the north. The Lafayette Falls annexation area will be added to the Common Council's 5th district and served by Police Beat 16, Fire Station 10, Emergency Medic 11, and Neighborhood Services and Enforcement Area 2. The zoning was formerly R, single family in the county. It'll be absorbed into the city as S1, Suburban Neighborhood 1, so a like for like zoning. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Morrell. Committee members, any questions regarding the fiscal plan?
Thank you, Chairman Warner. I had a question. I'm not sure if you're the one to answer about the mutual aid agreement.
Sure.
I was a little concerned about that, how much time it would take the fire department to get there if there was an emergency.
The petitioner is also present, could probably speak better to that question.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mr. Nusbaum, can,
Thank you. Richard Nussbaum, an attorney practicing here in South Bend at offices at 210 South Michigan, Suite 500 here in South Bend. We are very much, as a developer, we're very much in favor of that mutual aid agreement. We will do what we can to facilitate that. It would be an agreement between the city and Center Township. We would not be a party to that agreement, but it's something that we very much want for the residents that will be living there. And we'll give you our commitment that we'll continue to work on that until it's done.
Okay. I was just unsure of the process myself, so
Well,
I will dig some.
I think there has to be conversation between the city and Center Township, kind of in the form of an interlocal agreement. And they're not uncommon, so there's precedent for doing these kinds of things. And we're happy to work with the fire department and with Center Township to be able to put that in place.
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Nusbaum.
Could I just say one more thing? And then
Certainly,
I'll
sir.
sit down because you've heard enough from me on this. But I noticed there's some additional members from community investment that were part of the process that held our feet to the fire, and we thank them for that, Mr. Corcoran and others. And we appreciate their cooperation in this process.
Thank you. Any other committee members with questions? Seeing none, we'll take it to council members. Any council members with questions in person or online? Seeing none, we'll open it up to the public. Any members of the public in person or online wishing to speak on the fiscal plan for Lafayette Falls? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the committee. Committee members, any comments, questions? Or at this time, I would take a motion.
2504, go to the council with the full recommendation.
Second.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Clerk Torado, can you please do the roll call for us? Thank you.
Committee Member Gooden Rogers,
Aye.
Committee Member Bolden Simpson,
Aye.
Committee Vice Chair White,
Aye.
Committee Chair Warner,
Aye.
4 ayes.
Bill 2504 will go to the full council with a favorable recommendation this evening. With that, we'll move to Bill 2506, designating resolution for vacant building tax abatement for 635 South Main Street. Welcome, Mr. Molnar. Good evening.
Good evening, committee members. Joe Molnar, Assistant Director of Growth and Opportunity with the offices on the 14th floor of the County City Building. Today before you, Bill number 25-06 is a 2-year vacant building tax abatement for what is colloquially known as the Studebaker Admin Building, located at 635 South Main Street. The building at 635 South Main Street, like I said, is considered this. It was originally constructed as the Studebaker Administration Building. It also served as the South Bend Community School Corporation headquarters for a number of years as well, but it has been vacant largely for the past 2 decades. Here is a view from Main Street, and this is an aerial view looking north at the structure. To the very top left corner of the screen, you can see Union Station and the beginnings of Four Winds Field. To the right is the downtown South Bend Transpo hum. The building is in serious need of repair, and the petitioner can speak more to that, but the entire roof needs replaced, as well as the windows. There's severe water damage happening every month as many gaps have opened up both in the windows and the roof. One more map just showing its location on the south edge of downtown. The vacant building tax abatement would be for 2 years. The new owner of the building, which just closed a few weeks ago, Studebaker Admin QOZB, which is headed by Kevin Smith, who's here as the petitioner, recently purchased the building with the plans to stabilize for the future. The building is 149,000 square foot and was, like I said, constructed as the home of the Studebaker Company in the early 20th century. The primary objective is to stabilize the building, which would preserve it and position it for future development. Included in that stabilization would be structural repairs, like I mentioned, to the roof and windows, as well as environmental remediation with a total investment of $920,000. Here's a summary of the abatement. Currently, taxes are about $15,000 a year annually. Over the 2-year period, this would abate about $20,000 in taxes, and the owner would still pay about $10,000. I'd be happy to answer any more questions that you might have, and Kevin Smith's here as well.
Thank you. I've got a couple questions off the bat, Mr. Molnar, for you. So first, we're going to see a few different abatements, and this is just for the benefit of the public, and with different years, and why only a 2 on this one. And then second question is, I know RDC, the Redevelopment Commission, has assisted with some stabilization funds. Can you kind of go into that a little bit? Thank you.
Sure. So the difference between this and an abatement that you'll see after this is just a vacant building tax abatement, which are designed to help save these historic structures that are in need of significant repair just to keep them going. We saw with the old Hope building on Michigan Street, we did the council approved a vacant building tax abatement as well as a real property tax abatement for a future project. This is just the vacant building portion with the hopes of investing this money into stabilizing it. And it is just for that 2-year time period, like you said. So that is one of the differences, is this is just to help stabilize and preserve the building. The Redevelopment Commission did approve a development agreement that was part of a much larger deal involving Union Station and the former Clay's Candy as well. The RDC will be helping with the environmental remediation. So essentially the petitioner is signing up for all the structural repairs to the building, including roof and windows.
Thank you.
Yep.
Committee members, questions? Councilmember White.
Yes, Chair Warner, I just have one question. In your project summary, it mentioned by saving this historical structure. So is the Historical Society, are they involved in any of this in regards to what can and cannot be done to the building?
Sure, and Kevin can speak
Okay.
more to that as well, but it is a historic landmark. So-
Okay.
and he has gotten sign off from Indiana Landmarks as well for the
Good.
work proposed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other committee members? Seeing none, we'll take it to the public. Any members of the public wishing to speak on Bill 2506? In person or online? Welcome, Mr. Smith.
How's everybody doing? I'm Kevin Smith, 326 West South Street. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Anything to add so far? Or?
Well, I've been caring after this building for about 5 years on my own. So I'm delighted to finally being able to facilitate some of the necessary improvements. I've been Todd Zeikert and Indiana Landmarks. We've worked really closely together. And I'm just desperate at getting it stabilized because I'm deeply concerned if we don't, it's close that it needs to be done. So I'm also working with Indiana Landmarks and some other friends of mine that have done large scale developments, or I'd say renovations before. So we're anxious to get started, and this is helpful in moving us in that direction.
Thank you. I'm just going to clarify, you've been working on it for 5 years to stabilize it and you didn't own it.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
But you had an interest because of the building across the street, obviously.
Well, part of it is that because of the community purpose, to be honest with you, because I redid the Union Station, and I just think that cultural heritage and those buildings are a critical part of who we are personally. And so it was part of the campus that I'm working on with Studebaker 84. And so it's my objective is to make sure that it's done correctly. And so the next 2 years we'll knock down the challenges that most developers wouldn't be willing to take on. So my goal is, I'm pretty familiar, unfortunately, with all those challenges. So I'll take them on, knock them down, and then we'll make sure it's utilized in the correct way.
I think we're in the public portion, so any other members of the public wish to speak on the bill? In person or online? Seeing none, okay, we'll bring it back to committee. Question, Councilmember Bolden Simpson.
I think my question is probably more for 2506, because I was just wondering, what are the future plans?
That's what we're on.
Okay.
We're on 2506.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So what are the, I have a long history with this building, being with South Bend Community School Corporation for 39 years. So what are the future plans for?
Certainly. So this
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 building.
proposal right now is just to get the building in a state to save it.
Right.
So that's what we're primarily concerned with now. Final plans haven't been fleshed out for the next stages, but this would help with the cost of making sure that the building doesn't have to be torn down in a few years when it's deteriorated beyond repair.
This is repairing the roof,
Yes.
dealing with the
Getting it
environmental
watertight.
remediations and stabilizing the windows.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not short. Thank you. You got to come up, unfortunately.
I'm sorry, I did think it
No,
was two different ones when you talked about, so I understand now.
No, there's really good questions. And so we're putting polycarb over the windows because of vandalism. They keep knocking out the windows and so we'll put the polycarb, which you can't really throw rocks through. So that stabilization will be good. It'll take some years to frankly to dry out the building. So once the remediation's done, we'll let that ventilation occur because it's been wet for so long, it just takes some time to dry out. And then we'll be able to demolish everything that's inappropriate in the building. There's a lot of pieces added that will be taken out. We've looked at a multitude of different use. I've already had complete architectural design done. Originally, it was contemplated for Press Ganey, but because of some of the circumstances, they moved elsewhere. So I think that would be a potential use of something of that nature. But with all the development going on around this area, I think it's prudent to just let the community, let it become whatever is appropriate in, say, 2 years from now. So we're keeping all options open. It will stay intact architecturally because it's a well-built, well-designed building. So it'll be back on the forefront of our community. I'd love to see it open a gateway for the south side of town. That's my personal preference because how cool would that be to have that be what you see as you're entering the city. So hopefully it wasn't too much. Did that help answer some of the questions?
And answers. Looking forward to what it's going to become.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking forward to all the heavy work ahead of me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other council members? Councilmember Lee.
I don't have a question, but I do want to say thank you, Mr. Smith, for the investment and the vision to be able to save a very historic building in our city. And I've renovated buildings and God, you must be a glutton for punishment, but hey, thank you. Thank you for the vision and the foresight to want to save a very significant building in our city. Thank you.
Seeing nobody else at this time, do I have a motion?
I move that we send Bill 2506 to the whole council
Second,
with a favorable. Yeah.
Have a motion and a second for a favorable. Clerk Torado, can you please do a roll call?
Councilmember Gooden Rogers,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson,
Aye.
Committee Vice Chair White,
aye.
Committee Chair Warner,
Aye.
4 ayes.
Thank you. And now we'll move on. Unless anybody has objection, we will hear Bill 2507 and Bill 2508 jointly. At the end of that hearing, we will then need separate motions to move those bills forward. Welcome, Mr. Bemmendorfer.
Yeah. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Mark Beamendorfer, Manager of Business Development with offices on the 14th floor of this building. Bill 2507 is an 8-year real property personal tax, or excuse me, real property tax abatement for property located at 445 North Sheridan. And Bill 2508 is a 5-year personal property tax abatement for equipment to be installed at the same address. So both of these bills are to support a planned expansion by GTA Containers, a local manufacturer that has operated out of South Bend since 1988 and currently operates with 143 full-time employees. This expansion will help to position GTA Containers to respond to market shifts and remain competitive in their industry. So, I stepped ahead for a second. This expansion will require multiple investments, including $8.8 million to develop a new 112,000 square foot facility, along with an investment of $2.3 million in new equipment. To develop this new facility, GTA Containers has partnered with GLC Sheridan, and GLC Sheridan will lease the to-be-developed facility to GTA Containers through a triple net lease. After the expansion is completed, GTA expects to hire an additional 15 employees by the end of 2027. Now, obviously, these business investments will result in a corresponding increase to the tax base. Regarding the real property, current taxes are a little under $12,000 annually. This investment will increase the annual taxes to an estimated $192,000 annually. Based on this increase, the proposed 8-year abatement would result in abating roughly $704,000 while accruing $833,000 tax dollars during that time period. Regarding the personal property, the investment is expected to generate an additional $184,000 in taxes over the 5-year abatement period. Of this, $131,000 will be abated and $53,000 will be accrued. So this slide provides more of a detailed breakdown on the annual impact of the abatement of the real property abatement. It also reports a forward-looking review of the tax impact if the project proceeds as planned or does not. So this impact of which is shown on the right-hand side on the slide. And this following slide does the same, but for the personal property tax abatement. Being new equipment, there's no underlying tax base involved to compare. So this summarizes the two bills before you today, and happy to answer any additional questions. Now Isaac Hall of Great Lakes Capital and Igor Popov of GTA Containers are both here as well. I believe that they have a few words that they would like to say to add to the presentation.
Gentlemen, welcome. Anything to add?
Good afternoon. Isaac Hall from Great Lakes Capital, located at 7410 Aspect Drive in Granger, Indiana. Appreciate Mark's introduction to the proposed tax abatement here. GLC is pleased to partner with another local South Bend business to continue our investment in this community. The proposed abatement will directly benefit GTA Containers due to the nature of the lease. And will allow them to further invest in their workforce and their new equipment. The project will redevelop a currently underutilized property and convert it into a Class A industrial facility in the LaSalle Park neighborhood. This investment really represents GLC's positive outlook on the business environment here in South Bend, and we're happy to continue investment here. And we appreciate your time and consideration of this proposed abatement. With me is Igor Popov of GTA Containers, and he can give a little bit more insight from the GTA side.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Igor Popov. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of GTA Containers at 4201 Linden Avenue on the west side of town here in South Bend. I think the only thing I'd like to add to what Isaac said is that we've got a great workforce that's really part of the community there on the west side of town. As our business grows, the part of the business that needs space isn't necessarily the labor intensive part, but what we'd have to do without this is we would have to look for another location somewhere else to transfer the majority of our people. If we did that, we'd likely lose many of them, and that's something we don't want to do. We'd like to create a beautiful campus of 3 buildings that all look the same, look nice in the west side of town, and keep our workforce intact. So thank you.
Thank you. Committee members, any questions from committee members?
I have some
Questions?
questions. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for wanting to keep investing in District 2. Next of all, I'd like to know how many employees do you have there now?
We currently have 143 employees.
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
143 employees, ma'am.
And what's the rate of pay over there now? And
Uh,
what would it be, let me finish, what would it be after the new investment? Or what is
The
they
current
saying?
rate we start at about $15 an hour. But most of the people who would be coming in with this new type of work are their higher skilled labor. So what we'd be putting in this new building is a computerized camouflage paint line to do covers for military vehicles. So that would be some of the people, and the rest would be assembling systems for the military. So water and fuel distribution systems, those are in the $25 to $30 an hour range. And again, what I mentioned at first was just a starting salary. We've been bumping people up quite aggressively.
Well, thank you.
Any other committee members? Any council members with
Question.
Councilmember Bolton Simpson?
Thank you. When you, for these higher skilled jobs, do they require any education training beyond a high school diploma, or do you train?
It's a combination of both, but actually we like the people who have hands-on experience working with those systems in the military. The other place where we do recruit is we look for any retired firefighters or people who have worked with pumping systems in the past. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Any council members with questions?
I was just gonna echo, Councilwoman, Gooden Rogers in regards to thanking you for your investment in the 2nd District and look forward to, for the impact that we'll have as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Thomas Martin.
I think you answered my question. I was going to ask if you could say a little bit more about what the company does. You explained that in answering the previous question, however, if you'd like to say more.
Absolutely. GTA Containers is primarily a military contractor for the U.S. military, both here and overseas, as well as some of our allies overseas. And what we started off making just tanks, in collapsible fabric tanks for fuel and water storage. After that, we went into making covers and doors for our military vehicles, for the Humvees that we have out in the field and large transport trucks. What we've been asked to do by our customers, not many customers, obviously, we just have a few, but we've been asked to integrate the tanks with hoses and pumps so they can go to a one-stop shop for all of their fuel and water distribution needs. So that's what we do.
Great. Thank you so much for answering that. And thank you for your commitment to staying in South Bend and on the west side.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to the public. Any members of the public wishing to speak on Bill 2507 or Bill 2508 in person or online?
I do not see anyone in person or online wishing to speak in favor of the bill.
Thank you. We'll bring it back to the committee. Committee, any last comments? Okay, at this time, I would take a motion for Bill 2507.
I move that Bill 2507 go to the council with a full recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk Toronto.
Committee Member Gooden Rogers,
Aye.
Committee Member Bolden Simpson,
Aye.
Committee Vice Chair White,
Aye.
Committee Chair Warner.
Aye.
4 ayes.
507 will go to the full council with a favorable recommendation. At this time, I would take a motion for Bill 2508.
I'd like to make a motion that Bill 25-08 be sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Clerk Toronto, can you do the roll call, please?
Committee Member Bolden Simpson,
Aye.
Committee Member Gooden Rogers,
Aye.
Committee Vice Chair White,
Aye.
Committee Chair Warner,
Aye.
4 ayes.
And with that, Bill 2508 will also go forward with a favorable recommendation. And with that, we will adjourn the meeting of Community Investment. And right on time for zoning and annexation.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. We are now called to order the Zoning and Annexation Committee. We'd like to invite our committee members, our citizen members to join us. And then we'll have our clerk to take the roll.
Committee Chair Dr. Davis,
Hold one second. We still have two committee members coming up. We have two. Okay, cool.
Committee Vice Chair Niskoski,
Present.
Committee Member Gooden Rogers,
Present.
Committee Member White,
Present.
Citizen Member Henry Davis Jr. is present. Citizen Member Stacy Odom. All present.
Wonderful. I'd like to, again, welcome our citizen member who served last year and our new citizen member, former Councilman Henry Davis. We will have our organizational meeting for this on February 10, 2025, and we'll go over everything there. So now we'll move forward with bill number 0125. Mr. Skip.
Skip Morrell, Principal Development Planner with offices on the 14th floor of this building. Our first bill is for property located at 1408 Elwood Avenue. Owner is the Civil City of South Bend, and the request is a rezoning from what's currently I Industrial to U3 Urban Neighborhood 3. This is an overhead of the site and then kind of an angled view of the site there. Historically, this property's had a mix of uses. Most notably, this is formerly the Drury's Brewery location. Just to provide some context for the neighborhood surrounding, it's a dense, primarily single-family neighborhood. It was mainly built up in the 1920s. Looking specifically at the site, all the former buildings have been demolished, and the site has been cleared to make way for redevelopment. And rezoning to U3, which is a residential district, is consistent with the city plan objective H1 to ensure an adequate supply of housing is available to meet the needs, preferences, and financial capabilities of households now and in the future. And this comes to you from the Plan Commission with a favorable recommendation.
Okay. Thank you. At this time, any questions yet from our, before we have our presentation? You want to go ahead, Mr. Munar? Go ahead.
Evening, committee members. Joe Molnar, Assistant Director, Growth and Opportunity with offices on the 14th floor of the County City Building. Thanks to Skip for giving the overlay of the zoning process. Just wanted to do a quick overview of where we are on juries, which I thought might be appropriate at this time. As Skip mentioned, the property located off Elwood Avenue in the 2nd District of the City of South Bend, outlined here in blue, just west of the Portage Elwood Shopping Center. This is how the site appeared in August of 2022, when the city acquired ownership through the county tax sale process. The former Drury's Brewery site was improperly demolished by the former owner, which was the culmination of years of neglect. The city acquired the property in mid of 2022 and immediately began securing the site, so making sure vandals could not get into it any longer. Immediately began extensive environmental review and then began plan for remediation. In December of 2022, the city and the EPA announced a partnership for the initial phase of cleanup, which resulted in $1.7 million expended by the Environmental Protection Agency and over 14,000 tons of debris removed. This is what the site looked like in December of 2023. So even though all environmentally contaminated debris was removed, there was still a large amount of debris left over, as well as a significant number of buildings that were in varied state of disrepair. And here's a close-up of the foundations that were left behind as well. After the EPA relinquished site control back to the city, planning began on further remediation and cleanup. Phase 1 of that was the removal of smaller outbuildings and remainder of the debris that the EPA did not handle. Phase 2 was the removal of the large remaining buildings from the brewery process, including the grain silos as well as underground infrastructure. The total costs of the city's Phase 1 and Phase 2 was about $1.77 million. The city also worked with the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, and they helped remove underground storage tanks that were on site, which was approximately $275,000. This is what the site looked like in August of 2023 after Phase 1. I'm sorry, that should say August 2024. And here is what the site largely looks like today, although there's some snow now, of course. So this was in December 2024 after the city Phase 2. All buildings have been removed. The only remaining are the existing foundations from that original, the oldest part of the brewery, as well as the smokestack. Just for clarity purposes, this was before the city ownership in the summer of 2022, and this is largely today. Looking through this at the same vantage point. The next steps, the city Phase 3 will commence this year, which would be the removal of those final foundations and some partial soil removal and testing to clear environmental purposes. And then begin the process to secure funding and then seek out partners for housing on the site. It is the city's perspective that I-Industrial is no longer an appropriate zoning classification for the site, and that rezoning it to U3 would allow for a larger scale of residential options to bring housing. This is a conceptual drawing of what that might look like. This is by no means final, it's just what a conceptual design could be. So you would see perhaps a road going through the site with single-family housing off of it, with maybe some denser housing on Long Elwood, and then possible improvements to the park as well as part of it. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. When you said it was, go back to your last one if you can, please. You said it was the city's determination that it's no longer appropriate. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that, please?
Sure. So the site being zoned I currently would only allow us to seek new industrial partners since it is adjacent to Measle Park. And in the heart, of a residential neighborhood. While in the past that might have been something that was viewed favorably, at this time we really think in an I-Industrial use there might not be appropriate moving forward in the heart of a neighborhood, and as well as adjacent to a park.
Okay.
And I don't know if also necessarily industrial users would want to be in such a location as well.
So for both parts, the industrial may not want to be at that location, and then the neighborhood may not want that to be just that. Correct. That's what you're looking at.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you. Now, Councilwoman White, I know you would like to share some things.
Yes, I have a question. So the action that will be taken, if, approved, will be, really looking at the rezoning
That's it,
from I industrial to U3 urban neighborhood.
Mhm.
Okay, and the other question that I have, I know some of the council members, we attended a neighborhood meeting, and at that time, there was some discussion about solar panels and things like that. Maybe looking at some of that space out there as well. And there was some mention of possible some federal funding. So this action would not stop those discussions at all.
For solar panels on the site as standalone or?
I don't know. I have to get more information, but I know there was some discussion when some of us attended a neighborhood meeting.
Okay.
So I
think-
want to make sure that those discussions will still move forward.
Certainly,
Okay.
yeah, no, and I
Okay,
think so.
thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, well, could you determine or again restate how many acres we were talking about?
It's about 14,
Pardon me?
about 14.
14,
Thank you.
okay.
All right. Question. Go ahead, Mr.
right here.
You have a question?
Will you use any of the existing park land The park that's already there, will you take any of that land and use it for this project?
That's not the plan.
Okay.
And this rezoning is only on the Drury's parcel. It's
Okay.
not on the park parcel.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, you're nodding for questions or
I'm fine.
you cool? All righty. Committees, council, any other questions for, I know for first district? This is right up in your alley.
No, the second.
No.
Oh, it's second district.
Second.
It's second.
Mhm.
It's real close to both of y'all. Yeah. Any questions coming up so far? Okay, cool. All righty, thank you. Now we'll open it up to public discussion. Anybody in the public would like to speak in favor? Or if they're present in our chambers, or if they are present online, please share your thoughts.
I do not see anyone in person or online wishing to speak in favor.
Okay, anybody in opposition online or in person, please come forth and share your thoughts.
I do not see anyone in person or online wishing to speak in opposition.
So we are now close the public.
My hand is raised.
Oh. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Jordan Geiger, 302 South Falcon Street. I want to just kind of piggyback off of what Karen mentioned earlier. In November of last year, we had a neighborhood association meeting in LaSalle Park, and we were talking about development in the neighborhood and also in District 2. As part of that conversation, Caleb was in attendance as well as some other council members. And I had tried to draw people's attention to the fact that Indiana was set to receive $117 million in federal funds from the EPA to solarize communities across the state. And there's a specific coalition that's focusing on Black and low income and communities of colors. And in that conversation, we named that South Bend is one of the communities one of the cities set to receive a microgrid, as well as Fort Wayne and also Gary, Indiana, and I believe Indianapolis as well. And I asked Caleb if we could have a conversation about using part of that 14, 15 acres for this microgrid project, because the project will require between 5 to 6 acres. And the purpose of the project is, one, to reduce pollution and also to reduce the energy burden in disadvantaged communities that have been designated by the federal government. And so the microgrid is a ground-mounted standalone project, and it can power anywhere from 240 to 400 households. And I shared with him that there are ongoing discussions with the utility company to be able to connect the connect the microgrid to the utility grid, or the larger power grid. And so he shared at that time that we could have a conversation about this project in particular, and setting aside parts of the land to support this project. I've emailed him 3 times about it, haven't received a response. And so I was kind of surprised to see this come up before the council. And my concern is that there's already been a plan that's been designed for this area. So how can we ensure that we can actually continue with we haven't even started really, but have conversations about this particular project that is going to be coming to Indiana. I told her the money is already there. There's another organization, nonprofit organization, Movement Strategies, that is will be holding the money and that will be implementing the project. But we've not been able to have a conversation with him.
Thank you. We will have that, and I think Mr. Skip Morrell, in your rebuttal, I see he can be a part of that. Hold on one sec. Anybody else who may be online? Anybody else? If not, then in your rebuttal, depending on what you want to do, Mr. Morrell, you would like to invite Mr. Bauer. Go ahead. Come forth. Share your name and share your thoughts.
Caleb Bauer, Executive Director of Community Investment Offices on the 14th floor. Going back to that conversation, we did discuss a microgrid. We also discussed community solar. Community solar being really the operative form by which a utility company can allow a solar array to be constructed that then provides some cost offset for utility customers within a given area on the basis of certain criteria. AEP in some cases has done income-based community solar. This is something the city explored a few years ago. At the time, AEP was really looking for much larger footprint community solar projects, 2 megawatts or greater. And in that conversation we had a few months ago, I had shared that the Drury site really is not a large enough acreage to accommodate a community solar project that AEP is looking for. Separately, there are microgrid projects. The city of Fort Wayne has probably the best example of one. A microgrid is a solar array that serves only one customer, and that customer owns that grid. So a microgrid in the case of the city of Fort Wayne, the city of Fort Wayne installed a solar array, and it is the only customer of that solar array. It serves their wastewater treatment plant and offsets a significant amount of energy needs there. So those are the two different concepts discussed. I'll follow up with Mr. Geiger and we can continue that conversation. But I don't think this rezoning precludes residential solar in any way at this site. I do believe that a larger footprint industrial solar array would not necessarily be the right fit for this site itself, but there are certainly other sites we can explore in the city of South Bend.
Question before you go.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on the issue of what you said? You don't think that this bill, whichever way we go, will preclude that? Could you share a little bit more on that?
Right. So the U3 designation would not prevent any of the future housing from having residential solar installed upon it. And that really is something we would love to see as part of the plan. We had applied for an EPA community change grant with a number of nonprofit partners that would have involved the installation of residential solar in a development there. We don't know the status. We have not received an award, and certainly we're still waiting for decisions on that, but not necessarily holding our breath at this point in time related to that program. But that was a vision, and I would love to see that vision continue as we search for funding opportunities and partners through other forums for this site.
Okay. Any questions before you step down for Mr. Bauer? Any committee members or council members? Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you for your response. Now the public hearing is closed. If you see nobody else, we had the rebuttal, so yeah, close it. Okay, back up here to the committee. What's your thoughts and what's your pleasure? Comments? Any final comments you would like to have? Committee members? Council members? Go ahead. Well, go ahead, Mr. Davis. I saw you about to go to the mic.
Sure, thank you. Excuse me. I am interested in what Mr. Geiger was talking about. The idea of solar has been a big thing. I don't know if it continues to be one, given the new change in administration at the national level. But you were saying, Mr. Bauer, that there could be other sites. I think that the conversation that Mr. Geiger was asking for was to figure out if there was any appetite on the city's end to help progress the discussion. It's kind of hard telling the person no without giving them something else to go on. Those people that Councilmember White was talking about, and those are folks in the community, deserve a level of development that helps move their community forward. If you put in new housing, expansion tax base, the only thing that we can look forward to in that area is higher taxes, higher assessed values. That doesn't necessarily add to the community. The addition of solar would add to that community, hands down. And then South Bend becomes a national news story, right? We're using this to help benefit the folks that are on the lower side of the economic scale. So before we take a vote, if we do take a vote, anything can happen at this point. I would like to see that the conversation progress to something that's more tangible than you just saying, this is what we decided, we're going to move on. The community wants it, from the way I understand it. The folks that got the grant downstate, they want it. I think that there is some appetite here where I'm sitting at to see it potentially happen. And so if this leaves, then what comes behind it? And we don't hear about what comes behind it. We're just hearing, no, we got something else going on and we're going to move on. It's kind of hard working within government factions, and when all you get is a no, and take this and we'll move on. And hopefully sometime down the line in the future, we'll get to it. So I want to hear the conversation progress. I will feel more better as a person, as an individual, to get more of that conversation before a vote is taken for this particular item. That's just Henry talking.
Okay. And I think what you were talking goes along with what Councilwoman White had initially shared about continue talking about the more meetings based on, I was at that meeting myself. So my hope and we will put that as we do our organizational meeting in February. Let's put that as one of our key things that we will definitely continue to follow up on that, because we did have a nice discussion, pretty good discussion that night. And I think that we need to continue. And Mr. Bauer and I just scheduled a meeting, so I'm looking forward to that. Yes.
I just like to say that we've fought for a very long time to get to this point where for 50 years Drury's has been an eyesore in the neighborhood with the first and second district. It's second district, but it butts up against the first. There's been a lot of people who've worked very hard in order to get to this point where we can start talking about how to revitalize this area. So I'm not on the committee, but I do think it's very important that we move forward and entertain some of those conversations. But I do think that it's very important that we make the changes that we need. And I think the zoning is just to put us in a position where we can put housing there. So.
Cool. You're on everybody's committee. You're president. Cool. Miss White.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I wanted to make sure that the conversations continues as we begin to look at other possible sources of energy in regards to that, because the bill will not stop that. And we still, as a council, we still will be very much involved. I didn't want the conversation to stop. I wanted to be very widespread.
I'll make sure that would be one of the key things when we have our agenda on February 10th to move forward. So it's good that we can share that. We put our agenda and we'll get ready to move forward. So I appreciate that. Any other thoughts? This has been a good discussion. I know we got to get ready to close out here because we have two other bills to deal with.
Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
I am very pleased to see the progress, and, it's very nice. And so definitely want to keep options open. So that sounds good that options are open.
Okay. All right. Do we have anybody? Yes.
Well, I do know, and as we are happy with the forward movement of that particular property, I do know once we make this vote, that's it. It puts a pin in, puts a period at the end of the sentence. So you don't may get the conversations you're looking for, nor do you get the idea of another development happening. That's what's happening. That's how that works. If it happens another way, please let me know, but that's the way I understand it. So is there another zoning classification that could lend itself to residential and potentially the solar idea at the same time? I'm not a zoning specialist, but I do.
Mr. Morrell, you want to answer that? My understanding is that whatever we do, we have to have a special exception on that, but they can concur or deny that or whatever. What's your thoughts?
A U3 zoning classification would not preclude residential solar from being installed.
It does not.
It does not. There. I will say, if we're talking about a microgrid, this is a site, you could put a microgrid, you need one customer for a microgrid. Separately, if we're talking about community solar, you would need a 2 megawatt system for community solar. 2 megawatts would not be possible on this acreage. So the other option is residential solar on the housing on the site, which is something we would be happy to pursue.
So how much land do you need in order to have that type of development?
For a community solar site, AP sets those based on RFPs. I'd have to go back and look at the latest one, but when we explored that with AP a couple of years ago, a 2 megawatt site was it needed more than 100 acres of land.
That's what I was asking for. That's
Yeah.
what's looking for.
I
Thank
can
you.
get you the exact acreage. I know it was large. I don't remember it off the top of my head.
If you can send it to us in the committee, then it'd be great.
Yes.
We'll be sure to follow up. No, we're gonna follow up on all of this. This will be good.
Yes, I can send that.
Thank you again for your comments and everybody's comments on this. Do we have a pleasure from the committee? But I'll speak at once. Do we have a pleasure from the committee? Do we have a recommendation from the committee? Do we have a vote from the committee? Do we have a direction from the committee?
I'll make a motion to send Bill 1-25 to the committee of the whole with a favorable recommendation.
Okay, do we have a second?
Support.
You second it?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Okay, Clerk Torado, can you take a vote?
Committee Member White,
Aye.
Committee Member Good Rogers.
Aye.
Committee Vice Chair Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Committee Chair Dr. Davis,
Aye.
Citizen Member Henry Davis Jr.,
Nay.
Citizen Member Stacy Odom.
Aye.
I have 5 ayes and 1 nay.
Alrighty, we appreciate all the votes. That helps us to, again, put this on the agenda for February. We now move to bill number 0225. Property located at 616 Sherman Avenue. Can we have our presenter? Well, go ahead, Mr. Morrell.
Skip Burrell, Principal Development Planner with offices on the 14th floor of this building. This bill deals with property located at 616 Sherman Avenue. Owner is Property Brothers LLC, and they're requesting a rezoning from what's currently U3 to U2 Urban Neighborhood 2. On the site is a recently constructed duplex. You can see here, this is a picture from a recent event actually celebrating the completion of that duplex. Looking at the broader neighborhood, this is largely established in late 1890s, 1900s is a walkable urban neighborhood with a mixture of housing types. In the last few decades, a number of houses have been demolished, resulting in vacant lots. This construction, along with other construction in the area, is building back on some of those lots. This particular one is part of a larger project for several new duplexes along Sherman Avenue. Here's a site plan. You can see this is the area we're talking about here. So this was actually rezoned back in 2023 from U2 to U3 to allow for a sixplex. Ultimately, the duplex option worked better. They were able to build that. Now the lot lines in here are sort of moving around a little so they can fit in another duplex. So we're rezoning from U3 to U2 to prevent some like split zoning between the lots. So basically returning it to what it was before, allowing for construction of more duplexes in the area. And this comes to you from the Plan Commission with a favorable recommendation. Happy to
Alrighty.
take any questions.
Any questions now from our committee? Any questions from our council members? Alrighty. Anybody else with you to make any other kind of, there they go. Hey, come on up. I was looking for you. I couldn't find anybody on that side. You're sitting on that side. I was like, well, who's gonna make this presentation? It's you.
Yep.
I know. State your name and address and go ahead and present.
Good afternoon, Chris Godlewski, Abbott Marsh Consultants, 315 West Jefferson Boulevard, South Bend. I represent the petitioner. Skip covered that pretty well. As you can see, there's a reorganization of 3 lots into 4 lots. And because of that, we want to align the zoning so there's no split zoning going through a property. So just making it consistent. And this is going to develop this year for this small builder. So we'd appreciate if you pass it. I can take any questions you have.
And what is having it all on one line like that and all together? What does that do for you and your organization?
Having the subdivision realignment.
Yes.
So the lots become more narrow. We were the ones who did the platting and subdividing and petitioning the rezoning. We're kind of realigning the lots to fit a certain type of housing that the city is promoting and requires. So we're really trying to right fit a house with a certain lot size, if that makes sense.
It makes sense, just like you to elaborate on that and share that so everybody have a clearer understanding and everything. So I like what you're doing. Any other questions, any other comments? All right, well, I'm at peace, and so I don't see anything else. We will go to our public now. And we would like to open up those that like to speak in favor. Please share your thoughts if you're online or you're in present here with us today.
I do not see anyone in person in the chambers or online wishing to speak in favor.
Okay, we would like to now invite those who would like to speak in opposition, whether they're online or whether they're in person, to share their thoughts.
I do not see anyone in person in the chambers or online wishing to speak in opposition.
Well, with that stated, then we'll close the public hearing and we'll come back for final comments or thoughts from the committee or council members. Yes?
I would just like to say that the property that they showed, we were at the ribbon cutting, and it is amazing to see what's happening over in that area that has been long time forgotten. And so I'm not on the committee, but I do want to speak in support of this because it is changing the neighborhood, and they've got several, 3 or 4 that they're going to be building, and it's really, really, really nice. And it's a minority-owned company that's doing it, so we're very happy for that. And it's in the first, so.
Well, with all that, thank you, President. We would like to hear from our committee. What is your pleasure? What is your motion? What is your recommendation?
I'd like to make a motion that Bill 02-25 be sent to the committee with a favorable recommendation, full council.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second for Ms. Ophelia Gooden Rogers. So now we have our clerk to come and please call the roll with me going last.
Committee Member White.
Aye.
Committee Member Gooden Rogers.
Aye.
Committee Vice Chair Niskoski.
Aye.
Committee Chair Dr. Davis.
Could I go last, please? I'm gonna go last.
Citizen Member Henry Davis Jr.
Sorry.
Citizen Member Stacy Odom. All ayes.
And then me, aye. All righty. Thank you so much for that. And then we'll now move to bill number 0325, amending the zoning ordinance for property located at 40220 Old Cleveland Road. Before we present that, I'd just like to say that I used to be on this board. I am not on the board. And so I'm not wanted to be clear with that. I did enjoy my time and I appreciate what they're doing, but I'm just here as a regular person on the council chairing this meeting. So for the record, I'm not on this board again, even though you may look at some documents and still may see my name on some things, but that is old news now. This is 2025 and Mr. Morrell is going to move forward. Thank you. Continue.
Skip Morrell, Principal Development Planner with offices on the 14th floor of this building. Site we're looking at is 4022 Cleveland Road. The owner is the City of South Bend Department of Redevelopment, and the request is a rezoning from I Industrial to S2 Suburban Neighborhood 2, as well as a use variance to allow for a group residence. This is a view of the site from an aerial, and then a view looking from the north, looking south at the site. That's Old Cleveland Road running along the road closest to us. So the proposed use is the Low Barrier Intake Center. Looking at the site, currently a house was constructed there in 1950. Otherwise, it's an open land. Looking at the broader context, there are some larger institutional functions like the South Bend Community Reentry Center and the South Bend Organic Resources Center to the west. To the south, there's a large shipping facility. The proposed Low Barrier Intake Center would offer residential spaces and other services for guests, which is consistent with the South Bend City Plan Objective H5, which states to support existing transitional housing providers and shelters that offer a continuum of care to move people forward towards self-sufficiency This comes to you from the Plan Commission with a favorable recommendation.
Okay,
Take
thank
any
you.
questions?
Any questions for Mr. Morel at this time? Seeing none? Alrighty, we head on to Mr. Molnar.
Once again, Joe Molnar, Assistant Director, Growth and Opportunity, with offices on the 14th floor of the county city building. About 8 years ago, after the publication of the South End Working Group on Chronic Homelessness Report that came out in August of 2017, it was a recommendation from that report for a housing first strategy for homelessness, including establishing a permanent intake center. Since that time, in the preceding years, a number of different properties have been proposed over time, both officially and unofficially, by the community and the city, and have been rejected for various legitimate reasons. The city understands that no property would be perfect for such a use, and other properties discussed in the preceding years have been rejected for good reasons. The proposed site today would mitigate most of those concerns that have come up in the past, including not adjacent to or in an established neighborhood. It is also on a large enough parcel to accommodate all the uses that the planned provider would want to provide. And it is not close to any school or parks, but it is still adjacent to a bus route. It would be challenging, in our opinion, to find a site that fits the needs of both the homeless, the operator of the facility, and the concerns of the community that would be better than this site. The site and size of the location would benefit both the community as well as the homeless population by providing for their needs and allowing them to get back on their feet. Here's a proposed site plan, and members from the provider here as well can speak more to it, but with the idea that a lot of services provided on site so that people can get the care that they need. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Molnar at this time?
Sure. Are there any notes or minutes or research that has been done that shows any community that's the size of South Bend that has this sort of like setup?
Sure, that might be better answered by either Caleb or of the members.
And the reason why I'm asking while Caleb is coming, you can come on up, sir. The cost of service for such a site raises concern when you talk about dollars being budgeted for police and fire, medical care, et cetera. So your cost goes up very high because of the population of people that you're serving. And so most communities want those services closer in so they can get to those people faster or to that population faster, and they can get to the services within the community a lot faster. A bus line, sure, but walkable distance is almost usually better.
So back to the first part of the question.
Sure.
Communities that have pursued a low barrier intake center, the city of Indianapolis is currently in the process of developing a low barrier center as well, larger in size, which makes sense because of the size of the Indy metro area. As far as services and the impact of a site like this on public safety services, studies have shown that having people placed in housing with access to clinicians, which this facility would provide access to, significantly reduces the burden on our public safety services as compared to kind of the status quo, doing nothing, letting people need emergency medical care on the streets versus, getting them in, able to see doctors and have some preventative care. So though the facility might not be as centrally located, there are nearby service providers, and we believe providing the services at the site, that's the whole intent, that there are services rendered at the site. So people aren't necessarily needing to leave the site to get meals, to get medical care. Those providers are coming to this site. Did that answer your question?
No, it didn't, but I got it.
Thank you.
So I follow up on that real quick. So basically, the site that's in my district, well, I'm all at large now, Lord have mercy. Been with six for so long. The for the Oliver was those were this housing, but the key difference between that and where we are going here, not only the size, but also the quality of care that the residents will be having access to?
So the Oliver Apartments are what's called permanent supportive housing, which is one of the solutions in the toolkit that comprises the continuum of care. So permanent supportive housing is typically apartments like we've seen at the Oliver Apartments that do carry supportive services. They are provided by Oaklawn at the Oliver Apartments, but doesn't necessarily provide all of the meals, everything like that. Permanent supportive housing is typically where someone is placed after they may have been in a shelter environment and they're ready for permanent housing. Certainly, that's been a priority as well, as adding more permanent supportive housing units within the city. Hope Avenue Homes on the northeast side is the most recently constructed. It's a similar format to Oliver Apartments. The difference here is this is more of a shelter environment in that there are shared rooms. So there's a number of rooms where folks are sharing a room with each other. And then you are seeing food provided at the shelter, things like that. The goal is if somebody is immediately needing shelter, they could come to the Low Barrier Intake Center and receive that, and then hopefully be placed more permanently in a permanent supportive housing unit or in a voucher supported housing unit elsewhere in the city. So that's the idea behind the intake center, a centralized point to bring people in and connect them with services that they can then move out of, hopefully, the shelter environment if able.
My last question to you, and maybe somebody else will have something, and then we go to public, is what can we continually do to put some of the pressure, take some of the pressure off South Bend and help us with our local cities? I know Mishawaka and the county, and because I applaud the city for the tremendous effort of helping us to put finances in this, and Mayor Mueller for doing that. But it shouldn't just have to be his hat that he has to wear. I believe all the other cities, that is nice to see them come and do the Drum Major Awards from Mishawaka and other places, but we take care of so many other people. And right now, I don't see the support coming from our county and our sister city, and yet it's all on us. What else can we do to help advocate for that, so it won't be South Bend carrying so much of the burden only by ourselves?
Well, I would say the city is a willing partner with other jurisdictions, and we would certainly welcome partnership in this project or projects in the future.
I'm talking about that project. I mean, what we've been doing. I mean, what can we continue to do to reach out to them for that?
I would defer to you on what you would like to do there. I think our goal is to move this solution forward, an evidence-based solution with partners we believe are set up to be successful here. I think, yes, there are different thoughts in different jurisdictions, but my focus as a member of this administration is on what we're doing within our jurisdiction.
I got you. I appreciate it. Anything else? Yes, Ms. Rachel Thomas Morgan.
I'm not on the committee, but if I can ask a question, thank you, Chair. I just had a question about the one of the variances. It says development variance from a required building type to no building type. Does that just remove like a specific kind of housing type?
Sure, yeah.
That was typically in S2?
Yep, so Skip Morrell, Principal Development Planner. That's exactly right. So there are specific building types like a shop, a duplex, things along that nature. This, because of the programming of the site, doesn't quite fit into one of those categories as far as a building type. Of course, it would be held to all the other zoning standards when they go to pull permits, and that be all reviewed by the standards. Yep.
Thanks for that clarification.
Thank you for asking that. I appreciate it. Any other questions, whether you're on the committee or whether you're just already been the council, you're a citizen member? I'm at peace. Good place to be. All right, and so we now go to the public. Did we get to the public? We haven't gone to public on this one. Okay, cool. Those in public would like to speak in favor. Those of you may be present or online, we'd like to hear from you now.
I do not see any members in person or online wishing to speak in favor.
All right. And maybe waiting to tonight. Those who like to speak in opposition, in person or online, please come forth or share your thoughts.
I think we have one member that would like to speak in favor.
You
I'm
mean
sorry.
opposition?
Okay.
Are you doing favor or opposition? You doing in favor? Oh, come on up. You're the next contestant. Come on. Appreciate it. We'll go back to favor again.
Well, thank you. I'm Kevin Smith, 326 West South Street, and I'm highly in favor of this. I've been involved in this.
Mhm.
It's my neighborhood. I've been in since 1979, so I've watched all the ebbing and flowing, and I'm delighted that we're taking this move. And I think they've done a fantastic job, the board they've assembled, and the quality of program. I've been deeply involved for, 20 years in this, and this is the best thing I've seen for a long time. So I just wanted to let you know, I strongly support it.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Smith. Come on. Anybody else would like to join Mr. Smith in any comments, whether online or front, or you leave Mr. Smith by himself on that? I see some of y'all should be up here, but I ain't gonna say nothing. Moving forward. All right. Opposition? Okay, you'll see nobody online and everything else. So we're gonna close the public hearing and we come back up here for a recommendation or comments, whichever one you want to do.
I would like to make the recommendation that Bill 03-25 be sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
It would be to the committee of the whole.
I'm sorry, committee of the whole.
Okay, now we have a second on that one.
Second.
We have a second. So, our clerk, we have a motion and we have a second. So would you please complete the row with me going last?
Committee Member White,
Aye.
Committee Member Gooden Rogers,
Aye.
Committee Vice Chair Niskoski,
Aye.
Citizen Member Henry Davis Jr.,
I'm not going to support this, and I'm going to say that the information that we gathered and have gathered over the years is to figure out the best scenario for homeless. We're not going to eradicate homelessness. That's just what it is. But we have to figure out better locations, and not even only better locations, but putting people in situations where they can win, putting people off on the edges of the city into the county areas or wherever that is, does not help the idea and the appetite of those who are homeless. That's a whole nother paradigm shift. And given the information that I've gotten, I'm not interested in putting people further out, because what's going to happen is that's going to become eyesore, and the people that are downtown next to your station, they're still going to be there. And so, not in my backyard, I get it. I just think that there's a better way of getting this accomplished. And so I'm not going to support it. So my answer is no.
Citizen Member Stacy Odom.
Yes.
You said yay or nay?
Yay.
Committee Chair Dr. Davis.
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 nay.
All righty. I appreciate everybody's comments. We've had a lively discussion. We'll have our organizational meeting on February 10, 2025. At this time, we are adjourned. Yes, sir.
Chairman, just a recommendation. You guys, this council deserves to have legislative assistance.
We're working on it.
Not finished.
Go ahead.
Because of the lacks in information, depending on this person, that person to come. And truth be told, I'm not saying that they're liars. I'm not saying that they're uneducated. What I'm saying is that you need your own information. And once you get your own information, you are better suited to have a better vote on these issues rather than just moving forward with your own understanding.
I got you. And for what we were gonna do, and send me that in an email and make sure I have that on our organizational meeting. So
Yeah.
that'd be one of our key goals, especially when it comes to zoning issues. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All righty. Anything else before for the good of the order? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.